Welcome to House Call, brought to you by MedBridge Education. At House Call, we share stories from the front line of home health. We know you want to get your patients feeling healthy and independent, and we want to help you get them there by sharing skills that provide great experiences for your patients. Hi, I'm Tanya Miller.
And I'm Amanda Fay. Today, Tanya and I are back to share more strategies for effectively engaging patients.
We'll be returning to our conversation with Mrs. Baker, a patient with heart failure who you've heard from before, if you've been following along. Amanda and I will share some tips for reducing the friction to change. So let's hear Mrs. Baker's story again, and we'll jump into her conversation with her nurse. Betty is 86 years old and lives in Saratoga, New York. She has been treating her heart condition with medication and by keeping an eye on her health. A few weeks ago, her cardiac status deteriorated and she was hospitalized and she was put on oxygen. Even with her condition, Betty has been smoking a pack a day for as long as she can remember, and she's still not too convinced that it affects her health. She is happy living alone in her Saratoga home, but lately she's been worried that her heart condition will force her to move in with her daughter. Betty loves her daughter, but her daughter's husband has diabetes, and Betty is really worried that she would add more to her daughter's already full plate. So, Amanda, can you just tell us a little bit about how Betty's nurse's day is going?
Absolutely. Let's pause and put ourselves for a moment in Sue's shoes. She's a single mother of 2 elementary school children, and this morning they missed the bus, right? We've all kind of been there in one way or another. After scrambling to get her kids to school, right, she's logged into the morning meeting for her team and was called out by her manager for being 5 minutes late. That kind of sets things up. Her caseload has also changed since she checked it last night, and now she needs to get additional equipment for 2 new add-ons. That means going into the main office and going 30 minutes out of her way. Before she even reaches Betty's house, she's had to call the ambulance for a patient she found decompensating in their home, and she had to run from an aggressive dog at another patient's home. Suffice it to say, it's been a heck of a day for her.
Amanda, that sounds like a heck of a day. A lot of the challenges that we face in home health every day, but definitely can lead us to being at a place where we're not maybe thinking about what we need to do for that patient. So let's hear from Sue and Betty now, and then we'll provide some ideas and advice on how she can reduce that friction between her and Betty.
Hi, Mrs. Baker. How are you feeling today? Oh, before we get started, can you please put out your cigarette? It isn't safe for you to be smoking at home with your new oxygen, and it's hard for both of us to breathe.
Okay. I always forget that you nurses get all flustered when I smoke.
Thank you, but you know it's more than us just getting flustered. Your doctor just ordered oxygen for you. I see it over there in the corner. It's a real safety hazard to smoke near your oxygen. You could set your face on fire.
I know. Keep your pants on. It's not turned on anyway. And if I need it, which I don't think I will, I'll shut the thing off.
Well, we really do need to talk about smoking and oxygen. It's not just when the oxygen is on. Oxygen actually stays on your clothes and around you. It doesn't just stay in the tank. So if you light a cigarette, even after you turn it off, it can be dangerous.
Listen, if it's that dangerous, then maybe I should send it back.
Come on, don't be so stubborn. It's time to have an honest discussion about not smoking in your house, or better yet, not smoking at all. We wouldn't want you to burn your house down. Where'd you go then?
I am 86 years old, and I've been smoking inside all my life. I'm not giving it up anytime soon, no matter what you or any of these doctors say. Since my smoking seems to be bothering you so much, why don't you just leave me alone and get the heck out of here?
Holy cow, that was some friction. I can see why the nurse was nervous. It's a safety hazard that could be perceived as if the patient was putting her at risk too. Now we have to remember that if we do encounter these situations, we do have to make sure that we notify our supervisors. But there's got to be a better way to pull the person along through change instead of, pushing them through it.
Yeah, Amanda, such a great point. You could see the urgency with this nurse, and rightfully so. This can be a scary situation. But when we are in an urgent sense of change, especially, we kind of go to our default where we want to tell everybody the reasons why they've got to do something. You've ever been in that situation where you're just like, and this is why you have to make this change. that unfortunately backfires. What we actually need to do is pull people along, not push them along. So,
Hmm.
by using things like non judgmental phrases and being a little bit more objective, she could have really softened this interaction and brought Mrs. Baker along versus trying to push her into that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if the nurse practiced again just a little bit of mindfulness, because we often encounter patients who are very are resistant and very, set and very sure in their ways. So we have to remember that we're there to help them. It's not about us, it's about them. So again, my nursing friends, take that deep breath, right? Lean in before going in. Pause, breathe. And, we know it can be hard. Imagine before you knock on that door, everything again is falling away. And it's just about that patient who's in front of you. And so that will help you be in that moment and not try to, force them into change. So, Tanya, what do you think?
Amanda, you're really putting a great point here. And I think, too, this situation is a heated situation because, again, the nurse is a little fearful. And we've all had those experiences where we've been uncomfortable or fearful in the home. And
Yeah.
a lot of times our first instinct, again, is that pushing and that, we get a heightened awareness. And if we could just take that deep breath and live in that vulnerability and share with the patient that you're scared,
Yeah.
and say, I'm afraid for you and for me. Tell me a little bit more about this so we can figure out a good solution here. Because the bottom line is that nurse really just wants Mrs. Baker to be safe, but she also wants herself to be safe. And so being able to share in that vulnerability and, share how you're feeling about the situation, I have found in my own practice that really helps the patient too. When you can say, listen, this situation's making me a little nervous here. Can we talk through this? Because I don't feel comfortable either. That can really be powerful. So being next to that person, sharing that vulnerability, that can help to pull them along. And man, is that easier than trying to push somebody into doing something that they don't want to do.
Tanya, that's a great point. Let's think more about this as we move forward. And let's give Sue another chance now to put some of these strategies to use.
Hello, Mrs. Baker. How are you doing today? Oh, I didn't see that you were smoking. Would you mind putting it out while I'm here? Or I could go outside and wait until you're finished.
I always forget that you nurses get all flustered when I smoke. Come on in, I can put my cigarette out.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And before I do that, can I double check to make sure your oxygen is off over there for safety?
Yeah, it's off.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mrs. Baker. I know the oxygen order from your doctor is fairly new. Can you fill me in on what they told you about oxygen use in the home when you left the hospital? Another provider came to your home to get everything set up, right?
Well, they basically said use it when I feel like I can't breathe and that I can't smoke near it. That's why it's over there in the corner. I make sure it's plenty far enough away.
That's helpful. Would you mind if we talked about oxygen a bit more? There's some important information that you should know.
Sure, tell me what I need to know.
Well, first and foremost, oxygen is a very helpful tool to keep you moving and in your home, but it can be really dangerous near open flames, such as a lighter or a cigarette. Oxygen also remains on your clothes and in the environment after it's off. That means smoking indoors can be more dangerous than it used to be.
Yeah, I've heard this before. I know what you're going to say. Stop smoking.
Well, I want you to live your life as you choose, and so do your other providers. But we want to make sure you can safely use oxygen at home so you can be more independent. Can we talk about how you can smoke as safely as possible while still having your oxygen for when you need it?
Wow. I was expecting the stop smoking lecture I always get from you. You mean you're not going to try to make me stop smoking?
No, sure, I would love it if you didn't smoke, but that change is your choice, not mine. For us to work together, we can find ways to give you safe access to oxygen and occasionally smoke, if you want.
Well, that sounds like a good deal. What do we need to do?
Tanya, what she did just there illustrates what you were talking about with pulling.
Oh, absolutely, Amanda. I really think there were some good statements in here that are great examples of pooling. The first one, oh, I didn't see you were smoking. Would you mind putting that out while I'm here? Or I could go outside and wait until you're finished. That's giving that patient that choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not the nurse saying, yo, this is my environment,
Right.
this is my territory. It's allowing that patient and giving and honoring that patient that this is your environment.
Right.
And you know what? I'm going to play by your rules. These are your rules. Let's see how we can work together.
Yeah, I just want to finish on that too. She started off by giving her choices, and this is all about you. That was so great. I also saw that she, used the term, would you mind? And that really allows the patient to have that out. Yeah, I do mind. Just giving that patient that choice in all those conversations. And then I really, really liked, I want you to live your life. That patient was expecting a lecture and being told what to do and the rules, and she didn't do any of that. She honored that patient, and she was right there with them and brought them along. That's that pooling. That's how you pull people along.
Yeah, and it's about finding that solution together too. I noticed that when she said, I get you don't want to stop smoking, but maybe you can go outside. It's a negotiation, to be able to achieve, both objectives. And sometimes we have to be realistic to be safe,
Absolutely. Yeah. And this was just a really good example in the second one of how just by changing that engagement and being on that level playing field with that patient and being beside them, how you can, in one session, change the outcome.
Absolutely. And it illustrates that taking a step back before emphasizing the incentives of change, instead of incentives, right? A lot of times we do that. We focus on reducing that friction. It's combining the strategies that you've been talking about.
Yeah, this session really just pulled all that together. You can hear empathy in her voice. You can hear how she used some active listening skills. She also really recognized where that patient was in the process of changing. So she pulled all those things together and said, wow, I'm not going to push this person. I'm going to pull them along, and we're going to walk this journey together. That's great patient care. Well, that's a wrap for today, and thank you for listening to us. I hope that this was helpful.
And thanks for providing great care to your patients, and we'll see you next time on House Call.
House Call was brought to you by MedBridge Education. If you'd like to see if you can earn continued professional development credit for listening to this episode, log into your MedBridge account and navigate to the course where you'll find accreditation details. If applicable, complete the post-course assessment and survey to be eligible for credit. To hear more episodes, search for House Call in the MedBridge course catalog. Thanks again for listening.